Happy Sabbath, Heritage Academy.
Happy Sabbath.
The first song we're going to sing today is 460, As Water to the Thirsty. The last song we're going to sing today is 448, Oh, When Shall I See Jesus?
I really like that song we just did. It's a good song. And I know that you guys won't believe this when I say it, but I used to do the music department here. Bells in the choir.
I know, see, I knew you wouldn't believe it. Yeah. And anyhow, that was a song that I really loved to do, and it was a blast. We did that in the choir. Really intense. That brings back a lot of memories. I appreciate you. Good, you have it?
Yes.
There she is. You have it. That was awesome. Well, thanks for the song. So it is always a treat when we get somebody who has been in the mission field and will share experiences with us. And you remember Lowell Jenks lives in Crossville and has been in Africa as a missionary for years and years, and then he came back over here. Oh.
So you remember at the start of the year, Lowell Jenks came and spoke to us, one of the, maybe in the first month in September, and shared with us his experience in Egypt. He was at Nile Union Academy. And so we have the good fortune that his son-in-law is here, Chad Lambie, and Chad and Lowell were just in Uganda, and which is in Africa, and not everybody would know that, so I thought I'd add that. So anyhow, I'm excited that he's here to share with us. He has a book too, and some really exciting stories. So really glad that he's here. Thank you.
I've done that one time before, so I don't want to do that again. But before I get started, let me open with a word of prayer. Please bow your heads with me. Father in heaven, thank you so much for this evening, your Sabbath. It is a rich blessing to be here tonight with your children. I just pray that you use this broken vessel to speak through me, using the Holy Spirit to speak on the hearts and the minds and to be your voice. This is my prayer in your name. Amen. Before I tell you my story, I do want to tell you a little bit. It's not on, so we need to get turned on. I was just in Uganda. Less than 48 hours ago, I landed back here in America, and I am still on Uganda time. It's about 3 in the morning in Uganda, so I took a little nap earlier trying to catch up. I'm still a little jet lagged, but I wanted to tell you, if you ever get an opportunity to go out and do the mission field, take that opportunity. The humility that I was experienced and the feeling like a family. I've never felt so at home as I did in a far-off place in Uganda. They immediately welcomed me in and were so loving and so kind. I was just overwhelmed. And then the stories of overcoming adversity. My whole story is about overcoming adversity, and I'll get into that in a minute. But I was just talking to a young man from the Nuba Mountain, which is South Sudan, or North. It's right on the border of Sudan and South Sudan. Sudan still claims Nuba Mountain, but they believe they're still South Sudan because they're Christian. Anyway, this young man has lost his entire family. His mother was bombed trying to get water one day. And that was the last member that was alive in the wars. And he survived making a little structure. He knew how to bake brick, and he built himself a little tiny structure and a bed out of brick and dirt, and he's sleeping in dirt. And that's how he survived for many years until somebody gave him an opportunity. He basically trekked out of the Nuba Mountain region down to Lower Sudan and got to Uganda to be at the university there. But his story of how he survived on one cup of porridge a day for 3 years, and still had focus and desire and dreams to be able to be something. And now he's going on to hopefully be a CPA and eventually go back to the New Mountain with 4 other guys that escaped out of there to put in a school and have a new infrastructure, a new opportunity for the youth that want to become something. So his story just really touched me. That was my quick story of Uganda. And then secondly, I have another story of my adopted brother. I don't know who I'm speaking to in the crowd here, but he is 22 years old, and he's had a lot of struggles. Drugs, alcohol, getting in trouble with the law. And what I just got done telling him on the way over here was, show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. You've got to be careful with who you begin to put your time around and who you use as your mentors and your friends, because it's really spiraled him out of control, and he's trying to come back. And I can't really help him too much because of the decisions that he's made in his life, but he is trying to get away from the crowd that he has put himself in. So be careful who you spend time with. Not everybody deserves your time in life. So who am I? Chad Lambie. I have a book. I'm not going to really refer to it much, but I'm going to give it to the school if you want to read it later. It has kind of a little snapshot of my life. I was born in a good Christian family, but I was born with a very rare syndrome called cleidocranial dysostosis, CCD, and it's also known as dysplasia. Many of you are like saying, what is that? Just a real quick rundown. I was born with a soft spot in my head, so my sagittal suture never grew together. You can literally push in and touch the soft spot to my brain here and here, so that's why my head looks all wonky like it does. I was born without collarbones. I have no collarbones. I have had 45 teeth pulled out of my mouth due to malocclusions and some serious deformed teeth. I have internally rotated hips, so I've had trouble walking most of my life. I had bad balance when I was a kid, and it took a lot of physical therapy and a lot of strength training to even be able to do this, to be able to squat properly and come back up. I'm 1 in a million. It's so rare, you'll probably never see anybody else like me. Some of you might have seen a TV show called Stranger Things. You guys are giggling because you know Dustin. His real name is Gaten Matarazzo. He's actually a friend of mine, and I've spoken Utah with him, and we are combining with some opportunities to potentially bring more awareness to this syndrome, because not a lot of people know about it. It's not accepted in medical training, so we don't get any help to be able to do physical therapy or dental and stuff like that. So yeah, I do know this guy, Dustin. You know, students seem to really connect with that. Anyway, so I grew up in a great Christian home. I never thought there was anything wrong with me. My brother was normal. He's 6'2", and my sister is 5'10", superior athletes, just great kids, and I'm born with this. And so I was a little frustrated, but I was accepted at home. I never felt like I was any different. My dad knew that I was born with this syndrome, and so he treated me like my brother and my sister to give me as much encouragement not to fall back in life. And so I was like, oh, okay, this is okay. Everybody's got something wrong with them, so there's nothing really wrong with me. Until I went to school. And in about the 3rd grade, I decided I wanted to tell the kids in that school or show them what I could do. And I'm going to show you right now what I showed them, well, partly what I could do. And you're going to have a feeling, and you're going to have an experience. And I'm just going to we'll talk through that, and I'll tell you what the kids did. But here we go. Ready? 1, 2, 3. This is what I showed them. I was like, wow. And I'm thinking, yeah, I'm getting some good reactions here. And so students at a young age, maybe even at this age, you're going to say, whoa, that's amazing. Or a lot of those kids said, oh, that's weird. You're kind of like a freak. You should go to be in the circus. And the way I used to walk, I had a real funky walk with my knees that came in naturally like this. And they're like, oh, you walk like a troll. And these kids, though they didn't know what they were doing, they were labeling me. And I began to believe these labels, it's who I was. And I was an outgoing kid, and I began to retract and be a quiet kid. So to pause the story right there, You don't always need to share everything about you because not everybody knows how to handle your information. So guard your heart and trust those that really care about you, okay? Well, all that negativity began to well up in me, and I began to be sad, depressed, and I used to have anxiety. And my dad recognized this, and he said, and he poured his heart out in athletics. My dad was an athletic director my entire life, and he poured his heart out in what he loved, and that was the game of baseball. And I took to it like a fish to water. I began to play at a high level. I was fortunate enough to be on some all-star teams and traveling teams. And my senior year in high school, I was on an undefeated team, and it afforded me the opportunity to go to college. I got a full ride academic athletic scholarship to play at a school called Columbia Union College. Maybe some of you have heard of that school in Maryland. It's an Adventist university, and it's the only university that plays at the NCAA Division II level, which is a high level. You know, D1 is the best in the nation, D2 is just below it, and we still get scholarships to play. So to say that I played at a high level is the truth. But it was there that I met Jesus for the first time. Now, I just told you I was raised in a Seventh-day Adventist home, a Christian home, but I never really knew who Jesus was. It was just kind of there. It was just all around. But I was focused on baseball when I went to college. I didn't even know what was going on the rest of the school. I was just there to play baseball. And I go into the church, and they're having worship just like this Friday night, and we have to be there. And I'm sitting way back there because I'm not really into this. And on the screen, it's called Net 98, and Dwight Nelson pops up on the screen. Maybe not everybody knows who that is, but he's the head pastor up at Andrews University. And on his message, I couldn't tell you everything that he said, but what he said impacted me for the rest of my life. And he said, "You are beautifully and wonderfully made just the way that you are, and God has a plan for you in your life." And I'm sitting back there on that back row, and all of this stuff, when I was a kid, began to boil up inside of me. And I'm thinking, no, I'm that circus freak. I'm that troll. I'm disgusting. I'm not this. And he kept saying it again and again. You are beautifully and wonderfully made just the way that you are. And God has a plan for you in your life. And I didn't know what was happening, but I could feel this energy beginning to well up inside of me. And at the end, they had an altar call. And I just, boom, popped right up out of my seat. I began to walk straight forward to the front of the church. And a pastor comes up to me on one side, and a pastor comes up to me on the other side, and they said, "Do you want to pray?" I said, "Yeah, I want to pray." He said, "Do you want to be baptized?" I said, "Yeah, I want to be baptized." And so they bring me this card, and I sign the piece of paper that says I want to be baptized, and I just leave the church right after that. I go out on Flower Avenue, and I head up towards Morrison Hall, which is where the boys' dorm is, and I'm like, I don't want to go there right now. There's something still going on inside of me. So I walk over Flower Avenue in front of Weiss's library, and there's a big flower patch that's out in front of there. And I fell to my knees, and I began to just sob and cry. And I said, "Lord, is this real? Are you really inside of me? Is this really? Am I really beautifully and wonderfully made, and you have a purpose for me in my life?" And I just began to wrestle with this, and I totally submitted my life to the Lord in that moment. And I began to then change my life to say, you know what, I'm not just here just to survive. I'm going to play baseball for Jesus. And I would love to say that when I was baptized, all of my problems went away. But that's not true. That's actually kind of when everything began to challenge me even more. So I go on to be baptized, and I go on to play baseball for the rest of my time there. And to tell you a little bit about my baseball career, I was an All-American nominee. I was ranked 25th in the nation with batting a 445 average for my senior year. I was an All-American, I was a USCAA Player of the Week twice. I had a couple of write-ups of me in the college baseball write-ups. So to say that I played at a high level is true. I did play at a very high level. So I went on to try to play for the Chicago Cubs. And I was there for 5 days, and they cut me. And then all of a sudden, my identity, which I thought was a baseball player, I thought I was put on this earth to play baseball, was taken from me. And then because I hadn't rooted myself in what I believed yet, I began to spiral out of control. I began to drink heavily. I began to party and do things that I'm not really proud of. Bouncing around to pathetic job after pathetic job, and I'm just diving into debt, and I find myself homeless, living in a garage next to a worm factory. And my brother calls me up and says, "Chad, what are you doing with your life?" I said, "Well, I'm about to invest in some worm poop." And we laughed about that because that's dumb. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And he's like, no, Chad. You are still in great shape. You ought to think about going into the military. The Navy have these bonuses right now to go into the Special Forces. You ought to think about trying that out. I'm like, well, I don't know. The worm poop still sounds like a good idea, but maybe I'll take your advice on this. So I hang up the phone with my brother. I quit my job, which I was I was making $8.50 an hour working on cars. It was a bad job. And I moved home to my parents' house where I spent the next 4 months preparing for this. I got to time out the story here. My brother did for me what I try to tell young people or anybody to do, and that was be a swim buddy or a battle buddy. And he called me out from where I was at, and he said, "Chad, there's potential in your life. If you want to know your purpose in life is to call people out from where they are and show them where they need to be. If we can each begin to call people out from where they are to where they need to be, we'll be on a track to where we're supposed to be, which is the kingdom of heaven." All right? Our whole journey in life is to be able to show the character of Jesus, and then people will fall in love with that, and they'll be saying, "I'm here, and I want to be there." And my brother just did that for me. He said, "Chad, you're in the worm factory. You're sitting on the bench, wallowing in your poo, and you don't need to be there anymore. You need to go for something that is better in your life. Go for something." And at that moment, when I decided to go in the Navy, I rededicated my life. I said, "Lord, if this is what you want me to be doing, please bless it. I'm going to go at this with everything that I have. All of my power, all of my strength, I'm going to go at this." So I move home. I begin to exercise. I begin to change my diet. I'm eating frozen pizzas and ramen noodle and some real garbage food, and my parents are feeding me a whole balanced diet, plant-based diet. And I begin to get in some of the best shape of my life. I'm running miles. I'm swimming in the river because we don't have a pool, but I know that if I'm going in the Navy, I'm going to have to swim. So I go to MEPS, which is the medical evaluation to make sure that I'm alive, where they just basically give me a pulse check and can you see the words on the board. It was really easy to get in to the medical evaluation. But when I got to Chicago, I had to do what's called a dive physical. And during the dive physical, they did a chest x-ray on my body. I pray that nobody can look inside of you to see what is wrong with you. Well, during this evaluation, a lieutenant came out of the back and he said, "Who's Chad Lambie?" I said, "Well, that's me." He said, "I need you to sit right over there." Okay, this is weird. I usually have to go everywhere in the military with a swim buddy. And then he went over to my RDCs, which are the drill instructors, and he said, "We need everybody to leave. We need to talk to him alone." Okay, this is getting really bad because they don't let anybody go anywhere, especially in boot camp, by themselves. So he comes over and he grabs me and we go back to his office and he's got my medical evaluation in my arm, under his arm, and he says, "It says here you want to be in the Special Forces. You're not going to be able to do that. But that's not my decision. I got to go get the commander." So the commander comes in with my medical records under his arm, and he said, "Why do you think you're going to be able to be in the Special Forces? What's going on here?" He said, "Well, sir," I said, "Well, sir, this is something that I've been training for. I've been trying to learn about. I think I could be a positive asset to the United States military. What's this all about anyway? Are you aware you don't have collarbones?" I said, "Yes, sir, I'm aware I don't have collarbones." He said, "Are you aware the military has a standard that if you're missing a hand, foot, or any other issues like a collarbone, you can't be in the military?" I said, "No, sir, I was not aware of that." He said, "Well, you're already in the Navy. Maybe you can be a cook, or I was like, well, sir, wait. Before you make that decision, could you please look at my physical readiness numbers? He said, okay. So he flips to the back of my numbers where there's the push-ups, the pull-ups, the sit-ups, the 1.5-mile run, and the 500-meter swim. He begins to look and he's like, whoa, you've got some elevated numbers. 128 push-ups, 135 sit-ups in 2 minutes each, 25 pull-ups, an 8:25 mile and a half. You swim, and he goes over to this other chart and he begins to look at it. He said, you're in the top 4 percentile of all the Navy SEALs, SWIC, EOD, diver, and rescue swimmers. I'm going to do something I've never done before. I'm going to sign a waiver to let you try out for your dreams. All of that to say, I spent 4 months of strict preparation. I began to dedicate everything that I had to become the best at what I was about to do. In life, if you do not prepare, you prepare to fail. I almost had my opportunity taken from me had I not over-prepared. When you're being challenged for what you believe, are you prepared to be able to defend what you know and understand? It's now the time that you're preparing what you are ready for, not in that moment. Now, I'm not going to say that the Holy Spirit isn't going to bring to mind what you need to know in those moments, because He will. But how much stronger of a defense for the kingdom of heaven will you have if you prepare now, earnestly, every day? Moses spent 40 years preparing for his time. I pray none of you spend 40 years in the wilderness preparing for what God has for you. I spent 4 months. All right, so that transitions me to graduating boot camp. Boot camp was easy in the Navy, and now I've got to be shipped to Coronado. Coronado is where Navy SEALs and SWIC, the special warfare members of the United States Navy, train. Now, I don't know if everybody knows what Navy SEALs are, but they are the, yes, am I getting some north and south? If you don't know, they're the elite fighting force for the Navy. But what you don't know is special warfare combatant craft crewmen are also their brothers at that level. There's only 2 special warfare communities, and that's SEALs and SWIC, and everything else is special operations. So your EOD, diver, rescue swimmers, those are all a different platform. SEALs and SWIC work under Group 4. So they're in the Navy, but they're not in the Navy. It's kind of weird, but that's where we go to train. When I showed up, I was on a big concrete slab because there was already a class going through, and so I was just sitting there wasting our days. But every Friday, we had a thing called Prove Yourself Friday, where you would do push-ups, pull-ups, but on this particular day, we were doing flutter kicks. Does everybody know what flutter kicks are? You lay on your back, you stick your legs out, and you're doing 1, 2, 3, 1, a 1, 2, 3, 2. 4-count flutter kicks. I should tell you that before this day, 250 4-count flutter kicks was the max that anybody had ever done. There was 30 of us that lined up on a row, and we started out on this competition Friday to see who's the toughest, right? We get to 100 of these, and there's only 5 of us left. We got to 200, and it's just me and Mike Corvelli. We got to 250, and Mike Corvelli yells out, "Come on, Lambie, give me 300. And that's when everybody began to say, like, what's going on over there? And they all came over, and they began to count my cadence to make sure I wasn't cheating. And I'm getting closer to 300. And Don Bollinger, one of my best friends, he said, that's too easy, Lambie. Give me 400. And all of a sudden, everybody begins to get loud. And they're getting in my face. Come on, Lambie. You better not give up. Give me everything. And I'm beginning to feel this energy. I'm beginning to feel the vibe. I'm beginning to feel everybody just power me up. And I'm just, my core is on fire. My hips are on fire. But I'm feeling the love. I'm feeling the energy. And I'm going through this. And I'm just like, okay, guys, I got this. And I'm getting closer, and I'm getting closer. And then there's Don Bollinger again. He said, nah, Lambie. That's too easy. Give me 500. And all of a sudden, they all got super loud. And the instructors came out of the office to see what the heck is going on. Why are you guys getting so loud on a Friday when you're about to go home? But there they were, just cheering me on. But that's when it happened. I became super hyper-focused on 500. All of a sudden, their cheers began to just fade away, and I'm just pounding forward. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep going. And I'm getting closer, 480, 490, and then I hit it 500, and I collapse. As I'm collapsing, my feet barely hit the ground, and they jerked me off the ground, and they threw me in the air. And they're just like, that was amazing. I've never seen anything like that in my life. How did you do that? And they were just giving me the camaraderie, love that I felt in that moment was an all-time high. I've never felt anything like that again up into that moment. But the patting on the back and the love that I felt, I can't begin to describe to you how that felt to me. In life, if you can get behind people and cheer them on and show them that they are capable of doing so much more, there's no end to what you guys can accomplish in life. Now, the camaraderie was one portion of this. If we can be as a team and be able to lift each other up, and we will be successful. But what was even more impactful is what happened to me when I sat by myself on the curb. Because I didn't get to go home right away. We were just kind of sitting there. After all the energy died down, I began to reflect on this thing. You know what? I've got CCD, cladocranial dysplasia. I've got internally rotated hips. I shouldn't be doing this. And I just outperformed all these beasts, all these studs, all these guys that were D1 athletes. I'm talking athletes. And I'm the smallest guy here. I'm literally the smallest guy on the slab. And I just beat them all at something that they should be crushing me at. What is this human body capable of? And what I found in there, I just unlocked mental toughness in that moment. When you feel tired, when you feel like you're at your most, what I found out is you're only at 40%. You have 60% in reserves. I was tired at 150. I was tired. But I said, you know what? I'm going to keep pushing because these guys are pushing me. I don't know where I'm going to go, but I'm going to keep going. Now, if you can remember that equation, when you feel tired, when you feel like you've hit a wall, you're really only at 40%. You've got 60% in reserves, and you need to keep going because this human body is capable of doing so much more. And through my time in the Special Forces, specifically in selection, I found out that this human body can do way more than what you think it's capable of. I have no collarbones. How can I be doing 150 push-ups? It shouldn't happen. But it's capable. It's what you desire is what you can do. All right? Then a whole nother level hit me while I'm sitting there. I put a limit on the Lord. He's capable of so much more. What could I do if I allow the Lord to fully work in my life? Holy moly. So then I began to profess my faith while I was in the Special Forces, and they began to look at me like I was a weird guy. But I didn't care. I'm there to be an example. I said, Lord, if you brought me here for a purpose, let me be that purpose. And so I continued to be a Seventh-day Adventist, continued to be an example throughout my training. And they always thought, wow, why aren't you coming out drinking with us? I got to go to church. Whatever. But you're supposed to be going to church on Sunday. Nah, Saturday's the right day. And I got the opportunity to talk to them about that. And they were like, okay, I see that, but I don't understand it. But anyway, I mean, the Holy Spirit works at different times in different people's lives. So classing up. Some guys just graduated. I said, what's the keys to success? I need to know how to survive this because I might not survive this without the keys. They're like, I'm not telling you that. You got to experience the pain for yourself. But I'll tell you 3 things that you need to get. You need to get some boot polish, you need to get some starch, and you need to get some wood putty. Okay, I get the boot polish. I got to keep my boots looking fresh because we're jumping in the ocean. We're going to be running on the beach. It's going to be tough. I get the starch because I got to keep my uniform looking fresh and clean. But wood putty? I don't understand that. So when we class up, we're given a rucksack or a backpack. And within the backpack, you should have your swimming gear with you at all times. You should have your air canisters and an extra change of clothes and a lot of different things. So it turns out to be about 20 pounds of weight that you carry with you all the time, everywhere. You have a helmet, and the last thing they give you is a paddle. And on the paddle is painted flat black, and on the paddle is your name. And everywhere they go, all your gear has your name stenciled on it. So the instructors always know what belongs to whom. And when you go to an evolution, such as the obstacle course or an ocean swim or a bay swim or a long run, you don't have to take everything with you. You're allowed to line it up in a row, and the last thing you put on it is your paddle. Well, when you're going through training, instructors aren't allowed to slap you around if you're not doing something right. But what they can do is go over to your equipment and begin to chuck it all over the place, and then they'll grab your paddle. And then they'll go over to a rock, and they'll begin to beat the paddle up against a rock, and it begins to break apart, and it begins to splinter and crack. Now I know what the wood putty's for. Now it's my job to go and gather all those pieces, go back to the barracks room at the end of the day, take that wood putty, and begin to push it into every crack, every chip, every crevice. And then I got to take time. I got to let that wood putty bond to the wood. Because if I try to sand it right away, it'll fall out. So it takes time to let that sucker bond. And then as it takes time, I have to take all those high edges off when it is dry, sand it down smooth, and then the final thing is to paint it and then stencil my name on it. The Navy was trying to teach us attention to detail, take care of your equipment, and be proud of what you have. And those are all good things. But a deeper meaning hit me that night when I was working on my paddle. I don't know why the Lord gives me these things, but He does. We are all paddles in this world, each and every one of us. We are all broken. There are holes and cracks in all of us, doing stupid things. My testimony to you is to allow the Holy Spirit to be that wood putty, to be that bond. And it's going to take time. You can't begin to sand right away. You've got to let it bond. Once it bonds, there's still going to be high edges. The purpose of the paddle is to push water. And if you don't take care of those high edges, you're going to have drag in your life. So it's going to take a sanding process to take off those high edges. Time and time again, we're going to have to sand that. But after it's smooth, it's going to be covered and coated with the character of Christ. So that when people look at you, they no longer see Chad Lambie or your name on your paddle, but they see Christian. Like, that man loves Jesus. I can see that. I need to figure out what the heck's going on in his life. I can't even tell you how many times that has happened to me when I began to live my life fully for the Lord. People are always like, man, what is going on with you? You've changed. You're something different. What do you have? If it works for me, it's going to work for you. Don't ever be ashamed of who you are. But just understand that that's a process and that you're going to have to go through ups and downs, but never let go of that sanding process and that coating paint, which is the character of Christ. And be proud to be a Christian. All right. 0530, we're instructed to be standing outside of our barracks room. We have a room inspection and a uniform inspection. And all of a sudden, around the corner comes that big blue truck, that Ford with all the instructors, all 10 of them. I don't know how they got in there, but all 10 of them are in the back of that sucker. And they've got bullhorns, and they're screaming obscenities, and confusion is going everywhere. Sirens are blasting. And we're standing there knowing that we're about to experience some major pain. This is day one, week one of training, and we have a uniform inspection. But I'm so excited because I'm standing next to the Greek god, a man chiseled out of granite, self-proclaimed running back of the Nebraska Cornhuskers. This guy was huge. And I thought, you know what? He's just going to carry me through all these problems. When things get hard, he's going to pick me up, put me on his back. Let's go, Lambie. Like, sweet. You can run with me all day. I'm the smallest guy here. But there we were standing, waiting, as the onslaught began to descend upon us. And an instructor runs right up to me, and he kicks dirt right towards me, and he looks down at my boots, and he said, there's dirt on your boots, Lambie. Failed uniform inspection. Hit the surf. So I've got to get from where I am, run up and over a 15-foot berm, down into the Pacific Ocean, jump into the water, get all wet, run back up and over that sand berm, back towards my barracks room, and that's when the instructor looked. He's like, no. I told you to get wet and sandy. Get out of my face. Now, I could have argued with him. I said, no, you just said hit the surf. But what is wet and sand? Back into this Pacific Ocean, get wet, run back on the sand, roll around, throw sand all over yourself. So you got sand dripping down your ears, in your cracks, in your crevices, everywhere it ain't supposed to be. And you run back up and over that sand berm back towards my barracks room. In the meantime, guys are coming left and right towards the ocean, doing the exact same thing that I'm doing. I get close to the barracks room, and another instructor comes over and he said, let me see your room. And I just motioned to him, as you will. Go ahead, go in there. He's like, no. You go in the room. Awesome. Now let me tell you, I spent time cleaning this room. I scrubbed every corner. I even waxed the concrete floor. It was looking fresh. I mean, I would have eaten off that floor. And he tells me, get in there? No, you gotta be kidding me. There I go, one step in. Sand, water, slough off of me all over that floor. I about broke inside. All that work for nothing. You telling me I didn't have to spend 3 hours cleaning this thing? I could have just left it as is because I destroyed it in 3 seconds. He said, failed barracks room. I want you to bear crawl to the ocean. So there I was, bear crawling to the ocean, being humiliated. But then it hit me. Chad, you know what? None of this is your fault. This is a designed to fail evolution. In life, there are going to be things that are out of your control that are not your fault, and you're going to fail. What kind of resolve, what kind of sand do you have? What kind of education, what kind of training do you have to fall back on and say, you know what? I'm not going to quit. It doesn't matter what people throw at me. I'm going to keep pushing through this adversity because I desire what's at the end of this tunnel. I want to graduate this course one way or the other. So there I was, bear crawling to that sand berm, and another instructor is there. He's like, nah, it's too easy. Turn around. I want you to crab walk feet first up this sand berm, which is basically impossible because that's all hamstrings pulling you up that sand berm. And sand likes to go backwards, if you know anything about sand. It was extremely difficult. But in that moment, I turned to the right and I saw that Greek god chiseled out of granite. He had an instructor in one ear, an instructor in the other ear, and an instructor in his face. And they were just chewing him up one side and down the other, and he's doing one of these right here. Like, I don't care what you're saying. And then finally he said, I quit. And he goes over and he rings the bell. There's a big brass bell that follows us everywhere we go. And you got to ring it, and you can ring it as many times as you want. And then what that indicates is, I don't want to be here anymore. I want to go do something else in the Navy. I don't ever want to try this again. And that's when it hit me. It don't matter what you look like. It don't matter where you come from. It don't matter how many muscles you have. No one can measure what's in your heart, what you're driving for. Never let go of your dreams. Never allow someone else to dictate your avenue in life. And that's what really struck me hard, was this guy had everything. He had all the intangibles. Anybody would have picked him looking on the outside, that's the next Navy SEAL, no doubt. Me? I mean, if I were to tell you, if you were to hear a special warfare operator is going to come talk to you, what kind of person would you expect is going to be in front of you today? Someone that looked like a Greek god, right? Not this little guy. Yeah, but you can't read what's inside my heart. You have no idea how hard I drive towards things. But all you can see is the outside. Never judge a book by its cover. Now, I say that as I'm pointing at my book. Maybe that book cover looks kind of cool, but maybe the material inside isn't so cool. No, it's going to be all right, I promise. All right, so I somehow make it through the morning. 8 guys quit that morning. I started class with 85 men. We graduated with 25 guys. And I was one of those 25, by far the smallest guy, by far. But here we go. And we're told after that morning evolution of just pain and misery and butt kicking, we end up having to go to the classroom. We're told to stand at attention, and we don't know what's happening. But then the door flies open, and in walks Master Chief Brown with all of his medals on his chest. The most decorated special warfare operator in our community. I mean, his chest candy was just dripping. It was a sight to see. And he was proudly wearing it. But as he walked in, he began to survey the audience, looking at each and every one of us in the eye, trying to measure our mettle that we had. And he came back to the center of the room. He said, "Men, I want to thank you for volunteering for the United States Navy during a time of war. Most people run from a fight, and you guys volunteered, so thank you for being here today. Secondly, you volunteered to be in the Special Forces. You don't have to be here. You chose to try out to be in the Special Forces, and I want to thank you for that. But this will be the hardest thing you ever do in your life. I want you to look down to your right." So we all look down to our right. He said, "You see that chair? That's your chair. You've earned the right to be here. You've passed all the tests that require you to be here. Now it's your job to keep that chair. You see those instructors over there? Their job is to push you to your limits, to see if you've got what it takes to be in my community. They're going to push you further and harder than you ever thought was possible, but never let anybody take that chair away from you. That's your chair. Don't let anybody take it. This is my last class. I'm going to retire after this class, and it would be a great honor to be able to pin the Special Warfare insignia on your chest and shake your hand, welcome you into my community. But the only way you're going to do that is if you don't let anybody take that chair away from you. That same challenge is thrown to you today. You guys are all here at this academy. You all know who Jesus Christ is. Am I taking a leap of faith there? Whether or not you've chosen Jesus as your Lord and Savior, He wants you into the kingdom of heaven. That's it. You just have to choose Jesus as your Lord and Savior. That's your seat. Satan is a roaring lion trying to keep success. He said, this is the table or your chair, and quitting is no longer on it. It's not an option. It can't even be on the discussion table. Quitting is not there if you want to be there. All I want to hear is my Lord and Savior say, well done, my good and faithful servant. In you I am well pleased. That's my pinning ceremony. That's what this is all about. I want to be able to take you from where you are to where you need to be, and that is the kingdom of heaven. My mama told me never to use four-letter words. There's an epidemic in this world right now. And if I could, I would use a huge eraser to scrub that four-letter word out of your head, and that is can't. C-A-N-T is an epidemic. I wish I could scrub it out so that you could only think of potential and possibilities that the Lord has for you. What are you capable of? Well, you don't know. You've only experienced probably 40%. Most people quit when things start to get hard. Nobody pushes themselves beyond what they think is capable of. I'm going to leave you with one more thought. I do leadership programs and different programs, but the last thing I want to tell you are the 5 P's. Praise, provide, protect, purity, and the power of prayer. The 5 P's. Praise. Everybody wakes up in this morning drinking their haterade. They like to just tear people down. And I want to challenge you to call people out, but for the right things. Say, you are beautiful. You are wonderfully made. And God has a plan for you in your life. Begin to speak power of praise into people's lives so that they are encouraged to meet the adversity that is in front of them. We all have problems. We don't need to cut each other down. Continue to live in praise. Provide. Provide doesn't mean just financial provisions. We are all born with talents and time. Maybe you're a good listener. Provide that time for the people that you care about. And even try to provide that time for people that frustrate you. And try to understand where they're coming from, because everybody is hurt. So provide your time and your talents. Maybe you have some medical training. This school is amazing. You guys do CERT training. You guys got tons of talents. You have so much to offer. So continue to use those talents to help those that are in need. Man, you guys experience this more. Now that I'm thinking about this, you take people that are in horrible situations, disasters, from where they are, and you begin to show them the character of Christ, where they need to be. You live that lifestyle. This is a unique school. I don't think there is another school in the nation that does what you guys do. So continue to live that out. Provide. Protect. In the Special Forces, there is a drill that we do. The instructors will take a dummy grenade and they'll throw it out in the middle of the area. And if anybody hesitates to jump on that, the instructors will notice that. Our job is to jump on that and cover it. And whoever covers it they don't really get a reward, but it's a hearty pat on the back. And then you begin to see who's got your back. Who's going to protect me when the times get really tough? And if you are one of those personalities that run away from that, the instructors will hone in on you and then begin to help you not be in the community. They'll push you out. So be the one that wants to protect those who cannot protect themselves. I was that child when I was little and I was being picked on and I began to get those labels. Nobody was really there to protect me other than my father gave me an avenue in life. Oh, I forgot to mention that. So let me rewind that. I might as well hit it while I'm here. You guys don't mind that, right? Align yourself with people that will give you power rather than take power from you. My dad gave me information. Find people that you can look up to, people that you admire, people that you can get information from. Show me your friends and I'll show you your future. Remember I started that? That was my dad. My dad was able to give me something so that I could have a future. Don't be around people that take away your powers. Protect. Purity. Purity. I wish I could go back to 18 years old and 16 years old and tell myself, Chad, there is so much that you do not need to experience. If you can, and you can, avoid that which does not elevate you to the kingdom of heaven. I can only tell you from personal experience, it wasted my time, my money, and ruined friendships. I could sit here and bore you with stupid stories that don't need to happen. You don't need to experience it. Oh, but I want to experience it. Maintain that purity. If you can maintain purity of mind, spirit, and heart, you're going to make so many better decisions. So many better decisions. And purity also means your friend's information. If you tell me something and it is a secret, I don't need to be telling everybody in the school. Gossip is terrible, and it takes away the purity of relationships. So maintain that purity amongst yourselves and your classmates. Enough said. And finally, power of prayer. You guys are all special warfare operators, whether or not you realize it or not, choosing Christ as your Lord and Savior. Your only weapon of defense is prayer. I know you've heard it 1,000 times, and I didn't really figure it out until I was older. But prayer is truly a powerful weapon and an opportunity to make a difference. So we need prayer warriors. My mama wore her knees out praying for me. I know she did. She was worried about me for years. But she stayed on her knees and she continued to pray. And now I'm 100% sold out. I'm going through issues and problems in my own life. But it really doesn't matter because I'm never letting go of Jesus. Never letting go of Jesus. Somebody came to me not too long ago and they understand the issues I'm going through and they said, Chad, don't give up on the Lord. I said, what? Why would I let go of the only thing that has never let me down? Never let it go, God, and continue to use the power of prayer. Forgot to mention one more thing about this paddle before I close. You guys all have a paddle. What's the purpose of the paddle? It's to say it again? To keep you going. Keep you going. Like you're in a boat, right? And you got to propel the boat along. It can also guide and direct the boat that you're in, right? It's your rudder. Your rudder. Your tongue is your rudder. Your tongue can either propel the people that you're in a relationship with or friends with, or you can dash the boat on the rocks with the words that you speak. You can't get your words back. It's like a round down range. I can use a round down range to help protect the people, or I can harm people. I can't get that round back. So be mindful of the rudder that we use in life. Be mindful of your paddle. Begin to be proud of your paddle. Begin to allow God to shine through everything that you do in life. I don't know anybody in this room, really. I mean, I know Shadell, but and I've heard your principal speak at Crossville Seventh-day Adventist Church, but I desire to see each of you in the kingdom of heaven. And we get to hang out and we get to tell stories. And I would love to tell you more stories. We could sit here and probably all night and tell more and more stories. But the best stories are going to be about what we get to experience in the kingdom of heaven. Uganda just told me that the fruit is going to be jackfruit in heaven. I don't know what it is going to be. I mean, it could be jackfruit. It's pretty tasty. I had a lot of it while I was there, probably too much, but it was good. Maybe a mango. Mangoes were pretty tasty while I was there too. But whatever it is, we're gonna have a lot of fun when we go there. Before I finish, or maybe I should pray first before I get into the rest of it. So let me close with a word of prayer. Lord in heaven, you know who needed to hear these words. But if I could speak any power on these young people tonight, is that they are beautifully and wonderfully made, and you have a purpose in their life. And their purpose is to take people from where they are to where they need to be, and that is the kingdom of heaven. Continue to put us in those pathways that we can rightly represent you, and people begin to see your character living through all of us. Lord, it has been a pleasure being here in Heritage. I just pray that these young people have a wonderful year, and if they can be of service in any way, continue to strengthen them. Help them to remember that when things get hard, it's only 40%, and there's still 60% in reserve. And with you, Lord, there is infinity in reserve. And to continue to lean on you when times get tough. This is my prayer in your name. Amen. So I have a ministry as well. It's called the No Excuses Project. After what I wrote in my book, I've teamed up with 2 other special warfare guys, Green Berets. I'm the Navy, they're the Army. They think they're cool, but they're not. Navy's real cool. And what we do is we take young men through a Special Forces selection program for 3 days. We do Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But through that, we're not just doing the military training. We push these guys really hard, really, really hard. And then when but throughout the whole weekend, we're showing them, where's Jesus? Where are you? Because men, we have a problem. We like to think that we can handle all of our problems by ourselves. We have a hard time connecting and relying with each other and the Lord. Relying on the Lord is really difficult because we're told you can handle all your problems. Ladies, you probably also go through these similar issues. I can handle this. I can do this by myself. I don't need any help. But that's not true. In fact, God is all about unity. There's a Trinity for a reason. There's not just one God. They all are a team, and they work together in unity. And that's what we really focus on in the No Excuses Project, is to not just dwell on our own strengths. And we get some studs in this program. I mean, some guys that are real strong. So it's my job to take them to the side and really put them through pain and agony and get them to the point where they quit, right? Because we want them to get like, I can't do this anymore. Good. Now we can begin to work together as a team. So anyway, that's one of the mission outreaches that I do. And I am going to be possibly going to the West Coast to do another one. But if maybe some of you young men, we don't do anybody under the age of 18 due to medical reasons and safety reasons, but that is something that you ever want to do, you can always reach out to me. And that's basically what I have. And I also like to do mission trips. But are there any questions about me or my life story or anything that you guys thought was interesting that I can clarify or go further? Yes.
Question.
Send it. What's your traffic, as they say in the military? Send it. What's your traffic?
What happened to left hand?
Okay, yeah, this is a whole nother story. I wasn't going to get into this. I was looking for my other shirts and I couldn't find it. Well, I almost lost my arm not too long ago with a plasma cutting accident. And I was wearing this shirt and it blew my arm apart right there. It should have went right through my arm and ripped it off. The moral of the story is if you fail to prepare, or if you don't prepare, then you fail, right? So I was not wanting the machine turned on, but I should have told the guy that turned it on to wait. But he turned it on anyway. And the trigger, the safety switch, was broken. So when I was unraveling it, it hit my arm and it went off. Just like that. And it gave me a 3rd-degree burn. And I was wearing this particular shirt at that day. And by the grace of God, I have a 3rd-degree burn. And a story to say, handle things with care and always do your best. Never think, I've done this 1,000 times. Don't become complacent. I've done this 1,000 times, so I don't need to worry about anything. You need to. So I'm graced to only have a 3rd-degree burn and a small story to tell because I should have lost my arm. I don't know if you've ever played with plasma cutter for metal, but it can go through probably a 1/2-inch steel just as fast as you turn your arm, about that quick. It'll just cut it like butter. And I like to fabricate metal. I like to learn. I just finished a welding class at TCAT and built my own bumpers on my truck out there and built a couple other things. But be careful of what you have. It's like a weapon. It's like anything. Your mouth. I can hurt people with my tongue, right? So always be mindful of what you say. Don't think before you speak. Yeah.
This probably has a quick answer, but I'm curious now because you said that the Army Green Berets were doing. I said that the Navy SEALs were doing.
Are the best?
Yeah, I said the Navy SEALs. She said the Green Berets.
Oh, okay. Who's the best? That's the. I'm better than you, right? So if you ask Jesse and Joseph if they were here, they'd be like, Army. And if you ask me, Navy. But really, it doesn't matter because we're all trained equally on many different fields. Who has the hardest program? Green Beret. They have to complete a 3-week program. We have a 36-week program. So you got 36 weeks that you can fail. They have already been, you can't go into the Green Beret right out of boot camp. So they have years of experience. They have to go through 2 deployments to even try out for the Green Beret. So they're usually a first class or a E6 or E5, E6 to be able to get there. Whereas we have so much more education that we have to get through and piled in, which means more pain and suffering. But it's a longer trial period. And they say naval special warfare is the hardest training in the world. So maybe Navy's the best, but I mean, there are some awesome operators everywhere. There's a whole nother story behind all that. There's a guy by the name of Jocko Willink and Leif Babin who had to reorganize special warfare and how we work together across the communities. And so we're all pretty much the same now. But there was a lot of I'm better than you and issues which caused a blue on blue in Baghdad. A blue on blue means they were shooting at each other. They weren't communicating. They weren't working well together. And it's a long story. I don't need to get into it now. But now we're all built up to the same standard, which is a Christian concept. We need to all be on the same voice, same level. Yes?
Do you know William H. McRaven?
McRaven? Yeah. Absolutely. Admiral McRaven? Yes, I know him. He is a stud, and as you would say, the dripping, yeah. You know, you might not know this, but how many of y'all fly in this world, right? You know, he is the reason that you have to take your shoes off when you go through the security office. That's his fault, so you can talk to him, because he had to work with the CIA trying to find out who was the shoe bomber and how are we going to be affected, and he was advising the president when 9/11 happened. If you guys don't know who Admiral McRaven is, he's got a very inspirational speech called "Making Your Bed." If you look it up online, it's pretty good. And I had the pleasure of meeting him and working under him when I was in the United States Navy. He's a tremendous leader. He now works as a professor or a speaker at Texas. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah, I know a lot of SEALs. I know a lot of crazy guys. Yeah.
Save your number, right?
Can you say my number?
Save your number, right?
You can save my number, yeah. My phone number?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give it to anybody. You guys won't call me at midnight, right? Yeah.
Do you know David Goggins?
Of course. Okay, I got a funny story about Goggins. Anybody know Goggins in this room? David Goggins now has made a career with running ultra marathons, and he's self-proclaimed as the hardest man in the world. And is he? He might be. He's crazy. But when I was going through selection, he was at the schoolhouse, but he wasn't going through the schoolhouse. He was a motivator at that time. And he had just started getting out on the running circuit while he was still active duty. He hadn't made chief yet, so he was still up for making chief. He was a first-class petty officer. But he was a stud at running. And I was pretty good at running. I'm not trying to like toot my own horn, but I was top of my class at running. And I took off on the Strand to North Island, which is about 3 miles one direction, 3 miles back. And I was out ahead of the pack. And I make it to the fence, and I'm coming back the opposite direction, and here comes this machine in full body armor, which is about 20 pounds, David Goggins, blasting by me, going to the same fence that I was just at. But I had a lead on him by a ways. And I'm getting closer and closer to the Naval Special Warfare Command, and all of a sudden, this guy blows by me like I'm standing still. And I'm running at a good clip, and I've got nothing on but my shorts and my shoes. And I'm blasting down the sand, and this guy blows by me like I'm standing still. When we get back to the command, he turns around, he's like, "Good run." I'm like, "Yeah, what's wrong with you, man? Why do you run so hard?" But, I mean, he's a hard guy to get along with because he's so mentally tough. That guy comes from a terrible background, and he uses his anger and rage to get him through his difficulties. But an amazing specimen. I've never seen anybody like him before. But he went through Hell Week 3 times. He got hurt twice and rolled twice and was allowed to try it a 3rd time. But yeah, Can't Hurt Me he wrote, and I can't think of his 2nd book that just came out, but pretty amazing. Can't Hurt Me. Can't Hurt Me is the first book that he wrote. And I'll just be honest, there's a lot of blue-collar language in that book. So just FYI. But it's very inspirational. I'm not promoting it, but it is something, it is quite a story. It is quite a story. His 2nd one is equally as inspirational. But yeah, David Goggins. I know him. Any other questions? I was deployed to Africa, if you care where I was deployed to. I was supposed to go to South America, but so I spent 8 months learning Spanish. I'm getting real good. A week before I leave, a slot opened up and they said, "Nope, you're going to Africa, to a French-speaking country." Awesome. So I knew nothing. I was like, "Hi, food, bathroom." They didn't know sign language, so I was, Africa. And I did well in Africa. I got a Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal, so I just kept getting sent back to Africa. I went to Nigeria, Cameroon, and Chad. So I was in my own country. It was kind of neat. They didn't realize that they named it after me, but they just looked at me like I was weird. It was a good experience. Any other questions? There's always one more. Yeah.
If I recall telling your story, you went from kind of being this insecure kid,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden, like baseball scholarships. Like, how much hard work did you put in? You kind of glossed over that.
That's a good question. And it's hard to know what to emphasize on my stories and what not to. To say that I was addicted to baseball would be an understatement. I poured everything I had into that passion. It was rare to see me without my baseball glove and a tennis ball all the way through high school. From the moment that I fell in love with the game, I always had my glove and a ball with me, or two, and maybe even two gloves so that somebody would play catch with me. All of that to say, if you're passionate about something, you got to become obsessed with it. If you really, really want to do with it. So I taught at Milo Adventist Academy in Oregon. I taught there for 6 years. Good night. I taught there for 6 years, and I would have students, and I was the athletic director. I was a PE teacher. I taught Bible 1, Bible 2, Bible 4, a lot of classes. And I would always have students ask me, Coach, how did you get to that level? How did you play at that level? And I had a hard time telling them, look, I was way more dedicated than you. I didn't just show up and say, I'm ready to play. No, I was practicing day and night. I prepared everything for that opportunity because my dad said, Chad, you're smaller than everybody and you need to be better than everybody to have a chance to play. Not just to play, to have a chance to play. You have to be the fastest. You have to be the best because he knew the adversity that I was under. So my dad built me up mentally to be prepared for failure. So I don't know what your passions are in life. Whatever that is, I pray that you put God as the emphasis rather than Chad had it as my identity. See, I didn't understand that at your age. It wasn't until I got older. But whatever it is, I don't care what it is. If you say, I'm going to be the very best at this to glorify my God, holy moly, are you going to be successful. You're going to be successful beyond your wildest imagination. I graduated top of my class in the Special Forces amongst men that were animals, men that were amazing athletes. I should not have graduated top of my class. I have no collarbones. My hips are wonky. My skull has a hole to my brain right here. You know how bad boats on head hurts with no cranium right here? It wore my hair down to the skin. Now I don't have hair. What do you know? But no, if you want something, young man, if you want something, you've got to become obsessed. And you've got to dive in. But I want you to be balanced with the Lord in your mind, saying, Lord, this is going to honor you. And then whatever you tag on the end of that, God will bless it. I promise you. God will bless it if you live for the Lord, whatever that is. And there's a right way to do anything in life, but we don't know how to do things in moderation. We do things excessively the wrong way. You got your hand up again? No. Okay, yeah.
If there's one thing you could tell to your younger self, straightforward, what would it be?
When I was little?
Like not to it, like mine.
Well, first, when I was little, is what I said earlier. You don't have to share everything about yourself to everybody. You don't need to know what's wrong with me for me to have a relationship with you. So guard what is important. Choose your friends wisely. That would be something else that I would say, is I didn't always choose my friends wisely. I was ashamed of who I was. I had bad self-esteem, and I began to pick the bullies, and I tried to align myself with them so that they wouldn't pick on me. I tried to figure out a way to be cool with them so that they wouldn't notice my insecurities. And none of that matters. When you leave this school, the chances of you running into any of you again are very slim. I don't know anybody that I went to high school with. And so the words and the things that are said to you now don't mean a hill of beans come your future. So stop putting so much value into what other people say to you at this age. Choose your friends and I'll show you your future. You should be looking at your staff as people that have been there. Maybe you don't respect them, maybe you do respect them, but they have been there. And so they earned your respect in their knowledge. Take what they say with a grain of salt and begin to apply what they say. But what you all say, I'm sorry, the value is very low. The value, you just don't have the experience yet. My dad used to say this, the smartest you'll ever be is when you're 16 years old, because he was an educator for years. At 16 years old, many youth believe they know everything. But when you get to be 17, 18, you get to trigonometry, you're like, holy cow, I know nothing. Physics, whoa, that is insane. You can study physics your entire life and not know everything. So be humble and begin to be a sponge of the people that matter around you. That would be one of the best advices I could give you, is to be humble. You don't know everything. I don't know everything. I'm not the best that I can be. I'm going to work hard and be a sponge from everybody. I don't care who they are. Try not to tell people what to do at this age and begin to learn from everybody. I haven't got anything from the ladies. One question from the ladies. Oh, she almost had it. I saw the mouth open. You don't have to ask me anything. I used to be able to hold my hands behind my back and flip them up and over my head, but I've built muscles now, so I can't do that anymore. And a funny little trick I used to do is show people that, and they would, have a reaction, and I used to laugh about that. Yes?
Were there ladies in your class?
Ladies in the special warfare community? No. So that, I know it's a valid question. The United States military, however, 2 years ago passed legislation that females are now allowed to try out for the special forces. And in fact, one female has graduated from SWIC training, but she's already out. She didn't last in the community. So, but I'm not saying that women can't do whatever they want to do. I'm not saying that. But there is a place for those types of things. If a woman really wants to be on the special edge of life, there are different avenues, not just in the special warfare community. You can go to the CIA and do almost the exact same job at a cool level and be protected a lot better. But when you're around a bunch of alpha males and in that community, it is very, very difficult to stay in that community. I respect anybody that can do the work, and I really respect her for graduating the program, to be honest with you. But it is a difficult community to be in, and you have to be, like for me to be a Seventh-day Adventist Christian, I was constantly on guard. I was constantly being challenged my whole career. These guys, even to this day, they call me. I got about 4 to 8 guys that call me all the time that still check in on me to make sure I'm doing okay. Some of the best friends I've ever had in my life. Does that make them good guys? Like morally good guys? They're not really morally the best guys, but they are genuine friends. And we've cried together, we've bled together, we've just been through so much pain and agony together. So that experience is really what welded us together. So there's something to be said to go through a lot of trials and tribulations with people. Good question. Yes, some women. There's 2 Rangers that graduated the Army, Ranger School. They were both officers. And then the 1 female that made it through SWIC. No women have made it through SEAL training yet. So, but they're trying. There are many that try. Yeah. Anything else? This is fun. Yeah.
I'm curious now, how many times have you been shot?
I have never been shot, praise the Lord. I was only in one conflict that I could have died. Any of you know who the Boko Haram is? Boko Haram. All right, they're the African radical Islamic sect. And just like ISIS or any other radical Islamic mindset. And they are stationed in northern part of Nigeria, Cameroon, Chad area. There were 200 Nigerian girls that were abducted by the Boko Haram. And I was sent in with SEAL Team 8 to rescue those women. And when we got there, we began to train up for this mission. And when it was pitched to Goodluck Jonathan by Barack Obama, within 24 hours, our intel that we got went from a group of women that were being held in this compound to tire tracks, so there was nobody there anymore. So our mission went from rescue mission to train up partner nation. And during that time, we were being stalked. People found out where we were. And one day, when we got back to the compound where we were at, we were doing our normal rounds, and my lieutenant, Sean Matson, who's one of my best friends, had an intuition. He said, "Stop. We're not going to finish the round today. Let's go back." I didn't see what he saw. As soon as we all turned around, the suicide bomber that was just down the road blew himself up. And we were all very fortunate that we didn't finish the walk. Probably from here to the end of the building is where he was at, and I could feel the percussion of the bomb going off. So that was unfortunately the only, fortunately, and an unfortunate situation. Fortunately, the only thing that I was in, and I praise the Lord that I was never in conflict, that I never had to experience that. And actually, the SWIC community in the Naval Special Warfare is treated like the little brother to the SEALs. And so the SEALs are always like, we want the jobs, we want the hard stuff. And honestly, I was happy. I don't want to hurt anybody. I never wanted to. And people ask me, why did you try out for the Special Forces? Because people said it was impossible. Because people said I couldn't do it. And I wanted a challenge. And there was a $40,000 bonus if I graduated. So that was a big deal for me at that time in my life. But God protected me. He really, really did. I honestly, once I graduated Special Warfare class community, I never worked on Saturday. I had from noon on Friday until Monday off. In the States, even downrange. They had other people in the military that did jobs for us on the weekends. They said, you work too hard to worry about your weekends, you need to go relax. I was blessed. I got to stay in 5-star hotels while other guys were staying out in tents. So, people said all the time, choose your rate, choose your fate. And so I was able to be a stronger Adventist than many other career paths that I've had. You guys, staff, being on a boarding campus, you never stop working. You got roaming security. I had to do night security as a staff at Milo Academy. I had to drive the bus often on Saturdays, going different places for the kids. And so I was on duty all the time. And I was thinking to myself, I had an easier time in the Special Forces on Saturday than working for the church. I get it. We're volunteering our time and our duties, but it is a toll to be part of a boarding academy. I get it. It was hard. I ended up being the vice principal at Milo Academy. I began to move up and up and up, and it just became more and more and more work. And so when the Lord opened an opportunity to come out here, I took it. Anyway, that might sound a little weird, but I had a good time at Milo Academy. I got to influence a lot of kids, and got to speak a lot, so that was fun. You know what's funny is if you would have asked me when I was your age or when I was younger, you're going to talk in front of people, I would have laughed at you right in your face. I was so shy. I've got dental issues. I look funny. I was so unsecure. I wasn't secure with myself. I didn't know who I was, right? It wasn't until I fully submitted myself to the Lord that I began to gain real confidence. It doesn't matter what you look like. It's how you carry yourself with confidence is what really matters. Confidence is attractive. If you are confident with who you are, you can be a force. But you have to know who you are. Who are you? What is your purpose? If you know who you are, then you're going to be great. And who are you? Your design, your purpose is to take people from where they are to where they need to be in life. And if you can look for those opportunities every day, all day long, you're going to be an amazing example anywhere you are in your community. God first, family second, with church, family and church together, and then your community at large. Is that it? All right.
Chad, I really appreciate having you here.
Oh, my pleasure.
Awesome.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm thinking about how we can get you to come back again.
Well, God knows.
Well, let me have a closing word of prayer.
Please.
Father in heaven, we're so thankful for the time that we've spent with Chad, for the way that you've worked in his life and the way you inspired through him. And I pray your continued blessing on him as he ministers. I pray that the words of wisdom that he's shed upon each one here will sink down into their hearts and grow up and bear fruit. Lord, I pray that you would guide each one here to your purpose for them. And we pray for these blessings in Jesus' name.